All right. Hi, Julie. I'm so pleased to meet you and get a chance to have a little talk in front of the congregation on Zoom about healing. And so, if you can tell me just a little bit, I think I sent you 5 questions, and one of the first ones I just wanted to talk about was, what do you think healing is?
Okay, so healing for me, I think is really, it takes place on so many levels, right? Uh, and we have what I would call physical healing, where there is physical manifestations in your body. So gut issues, right? Or insomnia, or physical pain from sports injuries or movement or aging, hips, like all that kind of stuff. So there's sort of like a something that happens physiologically in the body that needs to be healed. And then I also find in my work, there's what I call psychological and emotional healing. And a lot of things I do, one becomes a precursor to another. And so in the line of work that I've been doing, and it wasn't something that I consciously said, I'm going to go work with people who have experienced trauma. It was something that just evolved over time, where patients would come to me and they would have insomnia or really bad gut issues, or in women, there'd be like really bad periods or all kinds of stuff. And what I discovered, patient after patient after patient, is that it was born out of a traumatic experience or traumatic childhood or traumatic situations that would then lead into the body, because it didn't get resolved on the physical, and really, really taking a step back, the emotional level, right? And so once you have emotional healing, then you have mental healing, then the body follows that. And so that, when we talk about healing, it really depends how and when and where the person was injured, right? Because often there is an emotional component to that. Even in things like car accidents that are very traumatic, right? Or a person falls and breaks a hip. There's emotional and physical trauma that gets stored in the cells, right? And then that person will become afraid of, oh, can I walk down a ramp? Or is it safe to get into my car again? And what's really interesting is I will have patients come in from car accidents, and it's not their first accident. It's their third. And before that, they never had an accident before. And now they have had like 3 in a row. And I'm like, why would you have 3 accidents in a row? Like, it's too many to be a coincidence. And then you realize it's because psychologically they're afraid every time they get in the car that they're going to have an accident. And so the work that I do, and again, it's still a mystery to me. The work that I do is to first heal the body, like heal the physical, what we call the branch. Heal what the patient came to you for. So heal the gut, or try to sort that out. And then kind of go the next step and go, okay, so is there an emotional charge? Is there an emotional reason why you have this issue that you're having? And if there's not, great. But if there is, then we need to go to a deeper level. And so that's what I see. Healing is not just a straight shot. Often there's more to the healing process that needs to take place. And so what fascinates me is, when in the scriptures, and I will not quote scripture because that is not, I really do not have a lot of depth in that area. But what has come to me time and time again when I've been working on people is, because I do a lot of healing touch in my treatments. And so I will, because I'm an acupuncturist, I will put needles in to regulate the flow of energy in the body, right? And then I will do healing touch to move the energy to where it may be stagnating. And for me, it'll feel like there's like a ball of energy there, or it'll feel very heavy, or they'll be like, it doesn't just flow through. Then we go to that point. And so what often comes to me is that Jesus was a hands-on healer, and he would always start with people's feet. He would wash people's feet. And I always wondered about that. And I know you could take it so many ways. It was a gesture of humility. It was a gesture of service. But what I've come to see across different healing modalities. So in Dunbar Heights, I was taught to do healing touch, right? The hands-on healing and healing touch. I mean, you do the energy down, but you always start at the people's feet. You hold the feet. And recently I did a cranial sacral workshop where you start with the people's feet and you hold their feet, and then you hold the heels, and then you work your way up the body. And what was so fascinating to me is, because people have said amazing things about cranial sacral healing, it overlapped exactly with the healing touch that we've been doing. And I'm like, okay, I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence that Jesus started with the feet, the healing touch starts with the feet, the cranial sacral starts with the feet as point zero. Because the other thing I've noticed is when I've been holding people's feet that have been traumatized, is you can almost feel that nervous vibration of that. You just feel it. It's like a skitter cat. It's just like this, like zzz. And as I hold the feet, the longer I hold the feet, the calmer, the more grounded. And so there's something about grounding people back into themselves. And so that's just an example of healing, right? And so I think when people are really out of whack, and COVID, oh my God, right? Where you can just talk for hours about COVID and the impact it had on people. Some people, yes, some people, no. But the patients that I'm seeing now that are coming in, they've just sort of lost their center. They've just sort of lost their true north or their, right? Because everything went upside down. And so now what I find when people are coming, they're just coming. And I think healing is also holding the space for people, right? It's bearing witness to them. And I think there's something very powerful that happens when we hold the space. And often in healing touch, you'll have healers that actually aren't working on the body, but they're there with the other healers, and they're saying, I'm holding the space. And I think holding the space is very, very powerful for people, because it gives them a chance to tell their story, but you're also saying you are valued, you are worth holding the space for, right? And some people have had trauma because nobody held the space for them, right? They weren't deemed worthy. And so I think when we talk about healing, like it's as wide as the ocean, right? It's as wide and as broad and as deep as the ocean, because it's like you can go so many places. But for me, the context has always been rooted in healing touch. And that's how I got started as a healer, was doing healing touch at church. And that led to acupuncture.
All right. You know, it's absolutely fascinating when you talk about the feet. I just finished reading a book called Being Mortal, and the doctor was listening to a gerontologist talk. And this is, you know, people who look after seniors' care. And he said when he did an examination, he would talk to the patient, but he would do it while holding the feet and examining the feet, because he often said, you know, people would say, oh, I'm feeling wonderful, I'm fine, things are good. But the feet often say, no, I can't bend over to reach you, or no, I have some sores here or some pain here, or that kind of stuff. And it just was fascinating, both in terms of having the time for the conversation while you're connected like that with the ground. I think that's kind of amazing. So in terms of the value of being present and physically touching someone as you're healing, and the place of holding the space, like what's important about being present to another person, being able to touch?
I think, okay, so there's actually two answers in that. Energetically, we have a natural exchange of energy between us, right? And I remember one of our doctors of Chinese medicine, he's an interesting guy. He would say that between us, there's a natural exchange of energy. So where there's depleted, it goes to where there needs more, or vice versa. So, and sometimes you'll walk away from a conversation and go, oh my God, that person just drained my battery. What's going on? And other people will fill you up, right? And so I think on a level we don't even see, that energy is going back and forth all the time, especially with moms and children, right? Children tend to really draw out of us because we've always been that well source. I mean, it goes right back to being in the womb. You birth something, so you're always giving it your energy or whatever. And so I think there's a natural exchange of energy that takes place. And then the second thing is I think from a fight or flight or somatic nervous system. So where you sort of, not somatic, but sympathetic nervous system. People ground us. People have the ability to ground us. So people that live on their own tend to sometimes have a harder time than people that live with other people, because you sort of have that mental check where they say, okay, just check your thinking on that. Like, just, are you sure? Right. And so even though people can drain us, it also gives us a place. Right. And so I find that when I am with patients and I'm actively listening and I'm giving them visual cues, like, okay, yeah, I get that. Oh yeah. Oh, that must have felt like, okay. And anything else, there's an empathy, there's a compassion, there is a validating that your experience is real and it's real for you. And so I think validating and being empathetic are such powerful healers themselves, right? And so I think that, and they also said, there was a study done a while back, don't ask me to quote it, but it basically said the longer a practitioner spends with a patient in the treatment, the higher the patient's satisfaction or along that level, that the more they felt they got, right? And so I know massage is probably one of the most sought after healing modalities outside of the medical realm, right? Because it is touch, right? It's touch. It is and sometimes it can be painful, but people love to go for massage because they love to sink into the table. They love to have people's hands on them. And you think as a child, you get hugged. As you get older, there's less physical contact coming from other people, right? And so there is less hugging. There is less embracing. There is less, warmth, right? Which are things that I think inherently we really do need. And I think COVID has made this so much harder because now we don't even get to see people, can't touch people, and I'm like, oh, I want to hug you. I said, oh, I can't hug you. It's like, oh, fist bump you. Oh, does it feel the same? Right. And so I think we're kind of wired, and some people don't, right? And there's no issue with that. But I know for myself, I love a good hug. Like, I love a good meaty, like, bring it in. This is a form of communication. This is like my transmission of like how much I like you or how much I feel connected to you. And so I feel like the hands-on is another dimension of that. And so if somebody's on the table, and generally when I do treatments, I will start off with the feet, holding the feet, and get to the hips. And then I'm always very conscious, because in healing touch, and if, by the way, to people sitting in the congregation, if you have not had healing touch done, go have it done. It is transformational. It is amazing. And we are so blessed to have so many healers in our congregation, like so many amazing healers in our congregation. And so I think there's sort of that reticence of like, I don't know what it is. It's like woo or whatever, but it really is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing to have done. And you don't have to be touched, right? People don't actually have to physically touch you. If you don't feel comfortable with that, we can work above the body, right? And so what I find is I will be on the body physically, with permission, obviously, with permission, to the hips. And then from there, I tend to go above the body at that point. And I also find holding people's hands, it's a very intimate thing to do, is to hold somebody's hands while you're healing them, right? And so you're always sort of conscious of that. I've been invited into this person's space. This is a sacred space. This is a sacred responsibility. And I think the whole thing works. And I just want to take a moment here and just tell you about a story that I had with a patient. And so these patients had come to me, and I've been doing my usual acupuncture, healing touch modality, and they loved it. And then the one patient had to go to Milan, Italy in May, to be with her mom, right? And so before she'd left, we'd done healing touch to balance her. And then what happened was she was in Milan, Italy, and wanted to have a session done. right? And I'm going, okay, this is really cool, right? So at 10 o'clock on a Friday night in Milan, Italy, I'm here. It's like whatever it is in Vancouver time. And we did it. So we put in the press tax and did the, how are you doing? And then she lied down on her bed and I put my computer on my treatment table and I did healing touch and I could feel the same energy that she was feeling and it translated. And it was like, wow, you do not have to be in the same room, in the same province, in the same country. You can zoom into that energy and you can, and I said, oh, okay, it's in the chest. She goes, yeah, my chest is cleared. And so wherever I said, okay, is it this? She goes, yeah. And so I think that it is a powerful healing modality.
Just going to ask about that, because when I look at this, and this is often how we end up communicating these days, and if the touch needed to be in person, whether that energy could be across these kind of waves that we have across the city, but you're saying it can happen around the world, that kind of.
And that was interesting. So as the clinic was closing, right? So our clinic, so I work at Chi Integrated Health. There's my plug. And on March 15th, whatever that Monday was, 15th or 16th, Keem closed the clinic. And I was like, oh, what do I do now? Right? Because I love my job. I love what I do. And I was like, because he had said, are you going to do telemedicine? I'm like, I'm acupuncture. I should do telemedicine. But what's interesting is as the emails were going out that our clinic was closing down, the emails in the Pacific Heights spiritual, like the healing touch practitioners, sped up, right? And so Judith Ann and Susan Burns and Jan Michael and all those wonderful, wonderful women, and there's many, many more, were saying, okay, well, let's switch to remote healing and we'll start scheduling people in. And if you want to practice, and we got people that want this, and I'm going, it was the church that led me forward on this one, right? It was the practice groups and the offering groups that I was kind of going, okay, there's your answer, Julie. They're telling you, like, keep going, right? Like keep going. And so I was like going, and I think the other thing is I don't tend to advertise that I do healing touch, right? It's kind of an add-on because for some people, it's a bit woo-woo, right? It's like, what is healing touch? And as a practitioner, I was like, oh, do I really want to go out to the market with this? Like, do I really want to put this on my Instagram? Like, yeah, I'm offering healing touch. And I think the thing is that I've struggled with, and I'll share this with you, is faith, right? It's faith. It's faith that, yes, it works. It's faith that the patients that need you will find you. And in fact, they did. It's faith that if you show up, the miracle will happen. You just have to show up, right? That's your job. And so as I was going, do I do or do I just sit on the bench and collect the $2,000? I thought, no, I'm not doing that. I will go forward. And it was funny because I had taken my car in to get it serviced and I was still struggling, like, oh, do I do it or do I not? And a lot of fear and what are people going to think? And I turned on the radio and the first song on the radio was this song on my playlist. And it was Can't Keep My Hands to Myself. I'm like, okay, I got the message. I'm going to go. I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm just going to go for it. And then I did. And then patients started coming. And then they kept saying, wow, this is like, it's not the same as in clinic, but it's like 80% there, or I really needed that. And so what was really great is I was able to transition through COVID. So I didn't stop. In fact, it was like starting a new business. It was like, okay, now I got to get the word out there. And I got to make sure that people are getting what it is that they need. And it's like, okay, what exactly are you getting? Like, so they would have a treatment going, what did that feel like for you? Like, what happened? Like, how did that work? And so I'm always curious as to what I'm actually doing with people and what they're actually experiencing, right? Because it's so ethereal. It is so out there. Like if you're a surgeon, you can see the incision, you can see the wound heal, right? When you work with energy, it's hard to document. Like it's hard to, and so, and I'll just give you another story, and forgive me because I do love this stuff. So because I do a lot of trauma work, right? And so a lot of people will come to me, and I had a gal come to me, lawyer, young thing, and she'd had a traumatic childhood, and she was doing the EMDR, like the trauma counseling, which is what I recommend a lot of people do because it remaps the brain. love that stuff. And she basically shut down, right? So here she is, she's young, she's not able to practice, she's not able to sleep, or actually, sorry, she's sleeping around the clock. Everything had just shut down for her. And I'm going, how is it possible that I'm talking to you, you appear normal, every Western test you've had done shows there's nothing wrong with you, right? Yet you are incapacitated right now. And so that shows me how deep emotional wounds are, that they can shut down a person's ability to function as a human being. So yes, you're still breathing and you're still digesting food, but everything else has just gone, stopped, right? It stopped. And so we started with the acupuncture healing touch. And within a week, she was like, okay, I'm now sleeping, but I'm not sleeping more than 8 hours. My energy is back. I can now look at the computer screen for more than 3 hours. I can now, and so over the course of really probably maybe we've done 5 treatments, she's now back to a functioning human being. Now, the challenge I had with that case is I didn't know why what we did worked. I didn't. Because, right? So, but I just did, right? And she said, you got me back. Like you got me right side up again. And I'm like, okay, so what is that? What is that? What happened with my hands and what happened with her body and what happened with the needles? And we did do some Chinese herbs. Great. But what is that? I think that is the miracle, right? That is, and, is it religion? I don't know, because I'm always saying, as I'm doing it, God's healing light energy, God's healing light energy, God's healing. Is it my faith? Is it her faith? Is it placebo? I don't know, but she's great. Like she is now, and I've had other patients, same thing, had to be carried off a ferry. Everything's shut down. This young thing couldn't function anymore. We get her on the table, we start working. And I do work with other practitioners. I do work with a lot of counselors and stuff like that as well. I'm not taking any credit for any of this. I'm not. I can't even tell you what I'm doing. I'm just show up and I do it. Right? So there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee because everybody's different, right?
Yeah.
But that to me is just faith, right? It's like,
Well, yeah, and the thing that I find fascinating about it is that it's not magic. Like when Jesus, clearly a lot of healing stories were connected to Jesus and his life on earth, but he also very much said to his followers, you go out and heal people. So in sort of the mind and ethos of Jesus, it wasn't some kind of magical ability that he had, but he had a commitment to the healing and well-being of other people, and that somehow, whatever that process is, whether you see it as yourself or energy or the work that you do or that kind of stuff, that we have the potential and the power to be a healing presence in all kinds of ways with what we do, whether it's talk or touch or electronic or whatever, that and maybe that is part of our faith. Maybe that invitation to step into healing is the thing that more of us need to hear.
well, and I also think, sorry, what came to me as you were speaking is intention. It's intention, right? And so when I was going to school, we were taught very strategically where to place the needles and what each point, and there's like over 468 acupuncture points on the body. Each point has a different function, and it's like I'm just, so where am I going with this? So we were taught you put the needle in and the chi will flow, and this is going to actually tonify your blood, so you'll have more energy, you'll have more, right? And but they also said, I was in Korea or wherever, but some healers have got this finesse that they don't have to touch the body. They can just move it, the energy with their mind. And I think that's intention, right? And so in the recent cranial sacral workshop that I did, the John Upledger was the guy that started this whole movement. And he basically said, the one thing he noticed is when you're a practitioner, you show up with your A game, right? You show up with your A game because you are bringing your intention, and we're going to do this for you, and this is how it's going to work, and this is what you can expect, and I'm going to do this, and this is going to work, right? That's faith, it's intention. So my intention of this healing is we're going to do this. He said, if you're not bringing your A game, stand down and don't work on that patient that day, right? Because you're doing them a disservice. And so Before every healing session, once the needles are in and before I start the healing touch, I say to the patient, okay, what is your intention for this treatment today? What is it you need to bring in or you need to let go? What is it that you would like to have happen as a result of this? And that's like, you can say it out loud or you can say it under your breath. I just need you to set an intention for your treatment today. And then I will echo it and say, it's my intention to minister of healing for God's highest power. Do you use the God word? I do. Or the universe, right? Like I'm not flogging it, but I'm also recognizing the source of me. Right? Give credit where credit's due. so, so I think it's healing with intention to heal, right? And it's recognizing that then I know I am not alone, right? Then I know I have called in whatever. And there's times where I will feel like I'm in over my head going, I can't clear this energy. There's just so much. It just keeps coming. This person is just like, oh my God. And then I will stop and I will say to my favorites, Raphael, Mary, Jesus. I seldom bother Jesus. I feel he's probably pretty busy. So I will say, use a hand here. Like, this is like, okay, this is beyond me, right? Like, I'm going to need some more horsepower here. Like, I just need some more help. And so I think I do have a very strong faith-based healing practice. I just often, the patient doesn't know I do, right? But I do. And that's because that's how I got into this, was through the church.
Yeah. You know, I could talk to you all day, but I think I'm going to have to call this to an end. I really appreciate your talking to us, and I hope that people in the congregation do take advantage of some of the healing touch and ministry that is available. Healing Pathway, I think it's called.
Because I do get that mixed up, so I apologize because I do mess that title up. But I think our church is exponentially blessed. And I think there's a lot of people in that church that will say, yeah, I went and it was amazing. And I was going through cancer treatments, or I was going through this. And, you know, when we were at the old church, we were at Dunbar one time, I was there one night, and it was so cool because we used to do it. I think it was on, I can't remember. It doesn't matter what the night was. Anyway, so I was there and we had all the tables lined up in the sanctuary. And it was cool because you saw braces under the table and you saw canes. And I thought, wow, this is what the church is supposed to do. And we're doing it. And it is looking really cool from here. Like, it was like, wow. And it's a testament to the commitment that these people have brought to keep it going and to provide it. And so I think it's one of the great things about our church is it is a healing, a literal hands-on healing church and congregation.
Yeah. I love that picture of braces under the tables. Thank you so much.